We're back.
We are back.
We've been going
yet another pee break.
multiple pee breaks.
Necessary.
Yeah, we've been going for a while. We are on a marathon right now of a podcasting streak.
Yeah,
Speaking of marathon, Beza, how's your training
Speaking of
going?
which,
a what?
How's your training going?
Fine.
you're not training to run a marathon, and you know it.
Beza's got a bet going that he has to run a marathon. By when is it?
I have to do it by
2022, wasn't it?
yeah,
Or 21.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So he's got some time.
You got time.
Got a couple years.
He doesn't do cardio though.
I do cardio, just not a lot of it.
This will be a good thing for our fitness inclined listeners. What do you do for cardio? Personally?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Mostly just like battle ropes, burpees, like high, like it's basically HIIT workouts, basically.
Okay. Explain what HIIT workouts are for people who don't know.
So HIIT is high intensity interval training. Okay. So like
Hit.
So basically, like one thing
Coach.
I do.
You hear sizzling in the background and me flipping some food.
Yeah, Kenny's making us some bacon right now.
Oh my god. No, but oftentimes a couple times I'm doing right now currently is like I'll go in the battle ropes for like 15 seconds, go as hard as I can, and I'll do burpees for 15 seconds as hard as I can, and I'll take a minute break, and then I'll do it over again. I'll do like 10 to like 15 rounds of that,
Okay.
like a couple times a week. So
Burpees are killer. Burpees are killer.
they're not fun, but they're good for you.
Yeah, who are the psychos who love burpees? They're definitely out there.
I know a few.
You
I know a few.
My brother is one of those.
Really?
Yeah, loves a burpee.
Man.
He does like insane burpees too. Like he jumps up and then like I don't know. It's like more than most people would think of when you say burpee. It's more intense.
Yes.
I respect it. It's
Yep.
not for me. Well, yeah, so let's talk all things Kanye. He's been mentioned a lot
Mr.
lately.
West.
Mr.
Okay,
West.
So I just want to point out the year is 2020, and I've been looking at the polls. I'm not seeing Kanye doing too hot.
He's not up
He
there.
said he's gonna do it in 2024 apparently.
Pushing it back.
Yeah.
I guess so.
How many times is he going to push that back?
Until he's dead.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like Kanye might like move to like a different country and then become the president there, like some random like Togo or something.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Shout outs to Togo.
Shouts to Togo.
I could see that.
Okay, well, did we all hear the album?
Yep.
Jesus is King. Yes.
Yes, we listen to Jesus King.
Thoughts on it?
I've
Well,
listened-
okay, the first version of it or the second version of it that came out? There was two different versions. One that was edited and like mastered.
Whatever's on Spotify.
Yeah.
Because like when it first came out, like it wasn't mastered, like things were cut right. Then he released it again like a week later. It was actually like fixed and everything.
So the first song on Jesus is King, whatever the name of it is, that one.
Every hour.
Every hour. It sounded weird to me the first time I listened to it.
Yeah,
So
and then he fixed it. Now it sounds better.
Okay, so I really liked it, but I was always like, this seems off. But that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like he went back and remastered everything, and now everything sounds like a lot cleaner.
I hate that he does that. He'll release an album too quick, and then he'll take down stuff and he'll fix it and put it back up. He did that with, I forget, what was it called? I Thought About Killing You today?
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He did that on Yay. The first song, I think, actually, I Thought About Killing You, had a really cool sample in the second half of the song, and then he didn't get permission to use it post it being published and out there, and then he had to put a different version of the song out, which isn't as good.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, because he didn't get the rights for it afterwards. It was very strange.
Who's pushing him to release these albums? Like,
I don't understand.
He is.
why though? Why not take your time? You're Kanye.
That's because he's Kanye.
That's silly.
That's just who he is. He doesn't care. He just does what he wants to do.
Yeah, that bothers me about him. I'm a huge Kanye fan, but I don't like that he does
Same.
that. It's really frustrating. It's like, give us the version that the song
and
is.
if he's claiming to be like a musical genius who's like trying to be a perfectionist with his music and everything, why would you like rush your work like
That's
that?
a good point. Why wouldn't you be a perfectionist or something about
I feel
it? Be
like
more
he was
careful.
much more of a perfectionist early in his career. I feel like now he's just, I'm a great artist, just put it out. I don't care.
I wonder if it's an overreaction to that. Like, I used to be so much of a perfectionist. Now it's like, I'm whatever. I'm just going to put it out. I'm just going to put it out because otherwise I'm never going to put it out.
Because think about 2010, he put out Doctor's Fancy, right? The album is like the pinnacle of like perfection as far as like production. Like he spent 10 months working on the drum pattern for all the lights. He spent 10 months working on a single drum pattern.
Great drum pattern.
Like
Really good.
but think about it. That's like the ultimate like perfectionist like album, right? Then what's the album after that? Yeezus, which is the total opposite of that. It's just total distortion, like very minimalist. Like I don't care. I'm just throwing this out here.
Very experimental sounds.
Very experimental.
I mean, I like both those albums, but yeah, they are very different.
And then he comes back with Pablo after that, and it's kind of like a mixture between the two. And then
Releasing tracks after the album was out.
Yep. So now he's kind of in this space where he's still a perfectionist, but I feel like he's doing more of that, be more perfectionist in his shoe game and his like clothing wear. I feel like he's more perfectionist in that field now. And I think his music's more of where he's like a free flowing creative guy who just puts out whatever he wants to put out.
Yeah, I've
That's
heard him
why I
say
think
that.
at least.
So like the clothing has become his baby, where the music is now his hobby.
Yes. That's what I feel like it's now.
I've heard him describe it that music is his job, and then he has all these other things. So like that's
Maybe.
that's how I've heard him describe it. But he probably is putting a lot more because he's mastered. I would say he's mastered music in a lot of respects. Now that he's done that, he brings in all these different writers, all these different features and producers, and lets them do a lot of the work. And he's more kind of a Walt Disney vibe, looking over it, giving his vision for it, being on it, obviously, and helping, but not being so involved.
I think that's perfect. Like what you just said is perfect. He already mastered music, so he doesn't feel like he has to be a perfect at it anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like he still wants to be perfect in like the clothing and fashion industry.
Yeah.
So that's what he's currently trying to master right now. So that's where all his energy is going to. Whereas music is just like, oh, I want to do music,
Right.
but I'm not going to be as worried about it.
We wanted to talk Kanye because he's been very vocal lately. He's been putting out a lot of stuff. Not only is he doing music, he's also been doing all of the fashion stuff and all these different business moves. And so we thought it'd just be kind of timely, but also just interesting just to talk what our thoughts are and our reactions to it in general.
I think this is great. This is why I love having Miske here, because this is a voice. You're on your way to becoming a pastor. So I think it'd be interesting to get your take on Kanye West and what he's been doing.
Yeah, and
lately.
Kanye's basically a pastor now, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About that. But I actually want to open with this question because Kanye obviously has had some sort of transformation over the past year and a half where he's I think if you listen to Kanye West's music throughout his career, there's always been an element of gospel music, but also an element of just talking about God and spirituality and all that. But I think in the past year and a half, he's definitely rededicated his life to God. But I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's been bothering me so much. And that is that, I especially seen this on social media, but I've also seen this like in conversations with people, is that Christians are now finally accepting Kanye, and they're just starting to listen to him. They're like, "Oh, you hear Kanye's album? It's so good." I'm like, "But you were just like dissing him a year ago.
I know.
You were just like putting him down like a year ago."
Yeah, you didn't listen to the
But now he's a
before.
Christian. Now you can listen to him. Now he's cool. Now you can associate yourself with him.
Yeah.
But before, when he was struggling in his faith, when he was trying to figure things out, when he was dealing with mental health issues, you weren't rocking with him.
And
But now he's a
good.
Christian. Now it's okay to like Kanye. Now he's cool. Now he's
a musical genius.
now he's someone you can embrace. And I've seen that from friends at Bethel. I've seen that from my own family members. I've seen that from a lot of people within the church community. And he says on the album a couple of times, the people who, ridicule me the most, people who look down on me the most are Christians, even though I'm trying to live this Christian life. But if you listen throughout his whole music career, he's talked about God all the time. He's talked about spirituality all the time. He's talked about wrestling with his faith all the time.
Jesus Walks.
That was his first major single.
Yeah.
But when he was wrestling his faith, when he was struggling with his faith, when he was talking about his temptations and his struggles, you weren't there with him. You didn't accept him then. But now he's dedicated himself to God. Now you accept him? To me, it's very two-faced and it puts me off the wrong way. What do you think about that, Miske?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kanye's one of the most interesting people in terms of talk about related to faith and Christianity and all those things.
And politics.
And maybe politics too, but I'm more interested in the faith side. And yeah, there is an element of that of like, yeah, the church and Christians, specific Christians were like, not Kanye. Like, yeah, he's talking about Jesus, but he's also kind of calling himself Jesus by saying Jesus. Like, is that idolatry? It's kind of idolatrous, right? He's kind of comparing himself to God. Like, that's uncomfortable. And the tendency then, especially since he's a public figure and he's saying this in public, I think the tendency of a Christian then is to turn away and be like, well, if he's calling himself God, we can't associate with that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but we're still called to love Kanye. We're still called to help him walk through his faith. But are we called to do that publicly? Are we called to do that privately? I'm not really sure on that. The Christians that knew Kanye personally, I think they should still walk with Kanye through it all, help him with his faith, help him with his questions and his answers. And it sounds like they didn't always do that from Kanye's perspective, but I think some did. Because at least for some reason, he did turn back to his faith. And he has, as you said, rededicated his life to Christ. And he's doing all these spiritual things. He's putting out albums all about Jesus. He's leading like Sunday service and all those great things. And yeah, I think there's been a clear change in his life. So I do think it's a good thing that the church has embraced him because of that. Because maybe they didn't act perfectly in the past, but at least they're embracing him now. Obviously, the church is full of hypocrites. That's like one of the number one disses on Christianity is it's full of hypocrites. But
sure.
At the same time, it's like, yeah, of course it's full of hypocrites. We're all sinful. That's one of the tenets of the Bible is we're all sinful. We all need God's grace. So we need grace in dealing with ourselves. We need grace in dealing with Kanye. And hopefully Kanye will have grace for us for how we didn't handle it perfectly the whole time.
Right. And yeah, like you said, the hypocrite thing, that's my main frustration is like, and I'm not going to say one out specifically, but people, you know who you are. People on social media.
Xavier?
People on social media were like,
I can't get my dick hard, and also I hate God.
The guy just can't catch a break.
On the pod, defend yourself.
You can't catch an interception either.
But like, people, oh my God.
Sorry.
But no, people on social media are like, lots of people, again, from schools that I attended specifically, are talking about how great as a Kanye has, turned to God and now he's giving his life to him. But these same people, just a year ago, were putting him down, were saying all these terrible things about him and his life when he was, which I would say he's still a Christian, but he was just struggling with a certain time in his life. So don't all of a sudden just celebrate him now if you weren't willing to say anything positive about him back then. That's all I have to say. I just think it's very two-faced, and I don't like it at all.
I think first of all, just don't put people down in general. Like
For sure.
especially on social media, like it's not worth it. Sorry, Xavier.
Sorry,
we
Xavier.
apologize.
Yeah.
I don't.
We stand to it.
But I do appreciate that he has at least been embraced in this change. Like, yeah, maybe it's two-faced, maybe it's hypocritical, but I appreciate that the church has Kanye, and I'm gonna turn the conversation a little bit here, because I think one of the issues with the church right now in society, especially American society in general, is how segregated it is. Right? There's white church, there's black church, there's all these different kinds of churches, and
As it should be. Kidding.
for the most part, though, there's not a lot of churches that have a ton of
98%
diversity.
kidding.
There's not a lot of churches that have a ton of diversity in terms of racial diversity in them. And part of me does think it is okay, like, for white people and black people worship differently. Like, I think that's okay. Like, we can embrace that. But we also know diversity is good. Like, when you get diversity of opinion together, when you get less homogenous people talking together, like, statistically better things happen. So I think there's ways that we can figure out ways to integrate the church more, and I think Kanye might be onto something a little bit here, because like in the hip hop world, black people and white people love Kanye and other races too, but there's the races represented in this room, I guess.
Well, just a Syrian, right?
Yeah, but I'm white and wouldn't say I represent them.
You're a Syrian. We can't use a Syrian.
Never been to the Middle East.
Not yet.
Is that why you hate the movie Uncut Gems, all about the Jews?
Busted.
You hit my people, Jess?
Are you Jewish at all?
No.
Okay.
I'm like one.
I didn't know if you had any Ethiopian.
Ethiopian and like 1/8 Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of related.
Yeah, we're related. We're the same people.
But yeah, in the hip hop world, everyone loves Kanye, right? So I'm wondering, in the church world, I've seen people of all races embrace Kanye in this new album, and both his albums and what he's doing with Sunday service. And I think a lot of good can come from that. Now I am a little scared in that it's Kanye running it, and Kanye doesn't have the best track record of staying focused on something or committing to his ideas. But I'm hopeful. And Kanye's not perfect, but one of the things I so often say in ministry is like God uses imperfect people. Like you see it time and time again through scripture, through the Bible. We've seen it time and time again through church history and just our own lives. So I think God can do incredible things through Kanye, and I'm hopeful for that.
I want to bring this subject on because I think we're headed that way anyway. But last time me and Ken were recording, we discussed Justin Bieber and how he went through a crazy experience growing up as like a 16-year-old kid. You turn 18, you have literally $50 million in the bank. You go crazy naturally, right? But then through it all, somehow Bieber eventually found his way back to God, and now he's living a much different lifestyle. He's married. He's spending more time with his family. He's investing more into time in the church and whatnot. And it seems to be a trend a lot in Hollywood in the music industry. Even Brad Pitt said he loves Sunday service, and now he's recommitted himself to God now, and all these celebrities are now saying they're turning themselves back to Jesus. I wonder if Miske had any thoughts on this, on why that's happening in this certain climate. Because I mean, it's not that obviously we're all Christians in this room. We all believe in Jesus, but so many celebrities are turning themselves back to God in a public fashion. I wonder why that is. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
I don't know, to be honest. It is a strange thing because Hollywood is notoriously liberal. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But Hollywood's notoriously liberal, and liberals are generally
notoriously secular, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and liberals are generally more secular, and that generally means less Christian. So it's interesting that it is turning back to Christ. And I don't know why. I think part of it is people for so long since the Enlightenment have been moving further and further away from spirituality in general. And we're kind of entering, I heard someone much smarter than me, can't remember his name at the moment, say this, but we're kind of entering into a neo-medieval time where people are starting to embrace spirituality again in different ways. And we've seen this in what we would consider as Christians, healthy and unhealthy ways. So there are people turning back to Christ in the celebrity realm, but there's also people finding spirituality in different things through like the Wiccan church is huge right now, and like through like people are finding their spirituality through like yoga and other things, and through like crystals and weird things like that. I find them weird. Maybe they help people, I don't know. But I think people are turning more to mysticism and spirituality right now than they have in a long time.
I think a big part of it too is as society's gotten more liberal, I think the church has also gotten more liberal in the past 15, 20 years. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe correct me on that. But I think since the church has moved in a more liberal direction with like Hillsong and like other big mainstream churches, and embracing more of the millennial culture with the bright lights and the fancy, clothes and the sneakers and whatever. and even like the music itself has gotten much more modern and with the times. I think that's brought people kind of back to their church in a weird way. But at the same time, as we, me and Ken, we go to Hope on Sundays.
Sometimes, yeah.
And one of the pastors was saying, and it's like how the average church attendance now is like 1.5 times a month.
Yeah, that's our church too.
But that's not like more people going to church, but they're going less often. And I think it's such an interesting thing. I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I feel like the church has gotten more liberal in a way. But in the way it's helped people get back to church, I don't know if I'm off base here, but that's just my thought.
I wouldn't say the church has gotten more liberal. I think certain sects of the church have gotten more liberal, but I think certain sects of the church have stayed or have gotten even more conservative.
Okay.
So I think I don't think liberal is the right word, but I know what you're getting at, and I think church is embracing culture a little bit more and trying to appeal to culture in a good way. They always say like be in the world but not of the world, and I think the church is kind of figuring out how to be in the world a little bit better so that they can draw people in. And one of the things about church is like if you haven't been to church before, it's terrifying to walk into.
Yeah.
Weird things are happening. We're talking about like eating the body of Christ. It sounds like cannibalism. Like it's
if you go to my Ethiopian church, people would be shocked and run out the door. People speaking in tongues, people falling on the floor. It's a whole deal.
Yeah, like so if you haven't been to church before, like it's terrifying. So I think how churches have reacted to that is by focusing it on how do we reach people who they didn't grow up with this, or they did and they turned away from it. Or so at our church we call them unchurched and dechurched people. So how do we reach those people? And naturally, if your intention isn't to reach people who are already in the church, who are already going 3 times a month, and you want them to come 4, great. But if your intention is to reach people who are going 0 times a month, it's a huge win if you're getting them 1.5 times a month.
Right.
So I think that's why is the focus has shifted away from keeping people in the church. It's now hopefully focused on getting people who aren't in the church.
Do you feel like, as a pastor or someone who's in seminary currently, do you feel like the church is currently playing a fine line between being in the world and being of the world? Because I feel that way personally, and this has been a struggle for me where Dean Donovan, who's actually was my senior scripture teacher at Concordia Academy, shout out, he was talking about how when you're walking through the presence of God at church, you shouldn't feel comfortable necessarily. There should be an element of, I don't know if fear is the right word, but there should be an element of reverence, and you're entering into the presence of the holy living God of the universe. There should be some that's uncomfortability in your heart.
Yeah.
You shouldn't feel comfortable walking into church with your joggers on and a latte in your hand. Even though I do it every week, I feel like there's something wrong about it. It feels like, I feel like when I was going to church and with my parents, we went to our Ethiopian church. It was a much more serious environment than it was when I was going to the white people church. And I feel like the white church in America has got a lot more lax in their approach in the environment of church. And I feel like Hillsong, with having celebrities there and wearing the new trendy clothes and having all the lights. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it makes you question: are we heading the right direction? Are we heading too far one way, or is this how we should be approaching it? I don't know.
Well, you like ritual and ceremony.
I do. I'm a big fan.
And some people, that's part of they associate that a lot with things that happened in their life that really turned them off to the faith, from abuse to mistreatment by other Christians. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I think part of that deconstruction culturally is really helpful. And I also think just the internet, having more podcasts and ways of Christians with other than Orthodox or traditional views getting their thoughts out more, I think might also be getting people interested again.
Do you think we are flirting with the line of being of the world instead of being in the world? Or do you think we're heading in the right direction? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're eternally flirting with that line. I think that's always been a line that's being flirted with. There's a phrase that the church is always 10 years behind culture in terms of what's acceptable, how far you can push the envelope on certain things, how you dress, how you act. The church is generally 10 years behind culture on that, and I think that's still probably true to an extent, and that's dangerous, that's scary. But at the same time, if we're reaching more people for Jesus, that's a good thing, right? So it's how do you flirt that line?
Yeah.
How do you figure that out? And then different churches, different denominations are handling it differently. So it's complicated. It's immensely complicated, and you're also trying to figure out what success is in terms of what's success for your individual church, what's success for the church. Because if you're being successful as the church and your only goal is to get as many people to church as possible, there's ways to do that where you don't end up instilling a lot of faith, you don't end up impacting real lives, you don't end up with great service events and all these other things. You're not instilling faith, you're not doing great acts of service, but you're getting a lot of numbers. So is that success? Partially, but I think there's a lot of layers to success, and you got to work through all of those to figure out the best way to.
And building off of that, more evangelical circles will have one of their main metrics of success conversion, meaning like, did you get saved this week? How many people committed their life to Christ?
Right.
And sometimes I've definitely seen this. The focus can be very fear-based and in some ways unhealthy, because I don't think they're embracing their life as it presently is. They're looking to the future too much. And I think that's another version of a misplaced metric for success. Do you see that, or do you notice that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in an evangelical church.
No, for sure. Yeah,
so
I'm just looking at it specifically.
I agree that for some churches that can be a problem. For other churches, it's like, well, yeah, converting people is a good thing.
Sure.
But if it's your only thing you're tracking, or if it's the one you're focused most on, you might be making it an idol, in fact, and you're probably not acting perfectly in that.
Jess, what are your thoughts?
I thought we were talking about Kanye. No, I think you guys have brought up some great points. I mean, I feel like I definitely go to like a more like a new age, like not as like rigid church environment. Like, I don't know, like there would be no issue with like me going to church just in like jeans and a t-shirt. And in a lot of ways, I feel like that is like kind of, it's a way to, kind of mass appeal to people and like bring in some people who are maybe hesitant or intimidated by church before. But I can also see why that would be a problem for some people, and how it kind of makes, I don't know, like the data that they're trying to like push, like, oh, we've converted this many people since then, like seem a little shallow or a little hollow. So I mean, I definitely agree with a lot of the points you guys have been making about that.
It is tough. I was thinking about this morning, actually. I've never been to a mosque before, or frankly, a religious service outside of various Christian ones throughout my life, and I would be wildly intimidated and would not know how to approach a situation like that. So I can only imagine how difficult it would be for someone on the outside of that to, even if you're curious, to walk in. And maybe that's part of the reason why people seem to be, whether it's trendy or a genuine interest, people that they really like their music or their art are coming closer to it,
For sure.
Like, oh, okay.
Have you been to a mosque?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have too, and I like the first time it was really intimidating. But once I was in it, like they were tremendously kind people.
Yeah.
We disagree on what we believe, obviously, but they were very
Sure.
kind and very welcoming. But it was that getting in the door was very intimidating. So I imagine that's how a lot of unchurched people feel.
For sure.
Yeah. Being an extrovert, like, if I get talking to people, I feel more comfortable. So I've been both to a mosque and I've been to a synagogue before. Not to actual services. I just went to like see and talk to people, and the first few moments in the door, I was definitely uncomfortable. But once I start talking to people and people start introducing themselves and talking to me, I felt a lot more comfortable and
That's awesome.
safe. So
Yeah, that's great.
It's interesting. Kanye it's really strange because in certain respects he is deconstructing some of the elements of what we classically think church is. So, for example, he's doing his Sunday services outdoors, sometimes in a desert, sometimes in downtown Chicago, various places, usually outside. That's very deconstruction-y if you compare that to a huge Catholic church, something like that.
Right.
But then he's also clearly a baby Christian, and he says some stupid stuff that is like rudimentary Christianity 101, like you're saying something really dumb. You're an adult, but you're also new to a different way of thinking. So I've just noticed in myself, I can get really angry sometimes when I hear the things that he's said. But when I'm introspective, I look back and I'm like, I could maybe see myself saying that when I was a little kid. And then as I was frankly socialized and learned more about the faith and the traditions of it, I learned the nuances of it and learned how to communicate it better. And
Sure.
I was just thinking he's got to be in a very vulnerable position, publicly accepting a different form, a religious form of thinking, and trying to learn it and mature in front of everybody. That's got to be pretty shitty.
Right.
It's one of the reasons Paul in First Timothy, he's laying out qualifications for like church leadership, and it's one of the reasons that not someone who is new to the faith are the people who should lead the church, because they have more wisdom, experience, all those things that come with being in the faith more, and better understanding. So that's one of the reasons that Kanye having so much power is scary.
Yeah, because he's just so influential. He can just say it and it'll probably be done. Yeah, he is describing himself. He wants to be a Christian artist, I think is the phrase that he is going with.
Yeah.
He wants
yeah.
to make art comparable to the Sistine Chapel for the church. And he's been saying that even since he said that
For
on
years.
Sway
For years, yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's been on his mind, but
Should we transition to the actual music
yeah.
of Jesus is King?
All right, we could talk about that.
Yeah,
could talk
is
about
that
it.
not what we were talking about?
I thought this was okay album. If you compare it to Kanye's other works, not great because he's made great music. But I think there were a couple of highlights, things I enjoyed. I liked the joint with the Clips and Kenny G. Bringing back the Clips together, No Malice to Pusha T. I thought that was, if you're a hip hop fan, you've been waiting for that for like over a decade now. So to see them come back together as brothers and rap together, that was really cool. I like some of the songs on the album. Other songs I didn't. I just thought it was an okay album. Not great, but not bad.
Yeah, there wasn't any like one song that jumped out at me. I was like, these are all just like okay, I guess. I don't know. Like I kept waiting for like the banger that I was like, oh yeah, this is the one. But they're just, I don't know, they're all just okay. And I think it's really cool that he took a chance and did a gospel album and is like really like putting his faith out there and kind of being vulnerable in a lot of ways with that. But yeah, just, I don't know, it wasn't my favorite Kanye album.
Yeah. Going back to what we were saying a few episodes ago about the Questlove Transition albums thing that he was saying, where sometimes the most notable album or piece of work in an artist's career can be when they make a major shift from what they were doing before. So an example would be like Bob Dylan, after being loved by the folk community, then goes on stage and plays electric guitar and people are booing him and telling him to get off. And he's saying like, I don't believe you or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting that he did the transition. I've listened to the album quite a few times and it's grown on me the more I've listened to it, but it's definitely not my favorite Kanye stuff. Some of the drums are really good. I like some of the vocals. I was in choir when I was younger and I loved hearing the Sunday service choir is really dope. I think they're great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Did you guys see that Kanye was on James Corden?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
That opening song is so crazy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
the first song was great, but then after that, it was just kind of okay.
Agreed.
None of it was bad. It was just okay to me.
Did you guys? What about you, Miske? What did you think of the album?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. There wasn't any songs like I hated. There
Yeah.
was one or two I liked more than others, but there wasn't really any that like jumped out like, oh, this is
This
it.
is the one.
Yeah. So
I think if there was any song that was the one, it was either the one with the clips on it or it was the Follow God song.
that's my Follow God's my favorite.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is that everyone likes Follow God.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's probably the best one on the album, I think. Everyone would say.
I can agree with that.
Closed on Sunday was very popular, and I was surprised by that.
No, everyone virtually hate on it. Like everyone collectively hate on that one.
But it was streaming more than most of the songs. Was it
Yeah.
because people were hating on it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think it was that bad of a song, but everyone didn't like it. So from what I know,
It was a weird song. Like, I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It's
Yeah.
just, it was there.
Agree.
I don't know.
I think there's a harp in there potentially.
I think the
Or,
problem with it was a metaphor for Chick-fil-A, which is just a weird thing to base a song on.
Yeah, it really is.
yeah, I think that threw people. That threw everyone off pretty much.
Also, Chick-fil-A is a very controversial thing, so
Naturally, yes.
he's walking a fine line already.
Yeah, he definitely knew he was going into that. How involved is he in the arrangements and the harmonies? Do you know? Because he has that conductor who seems to be doing a lot.
I'm not sure how he does that. I feel like he leaves. I feel like it's the same thing where he does on his last couple albums, where he kind of delegates all that to like the director and other people, and then he kind of like oversees the projects in a way.
That makes sense.
You know?
Yeah, I could see that. Working in a church, has Kanye been mentioned much with all of him being in the news and everything?
Yeah, Kanye is really hot right now. Well, not so much anymore, but when that album dropped in those couple weeks, like, he was really hot in the youth ministry world. Like, people were basing games off of him. I mean, I talked about him in one of my lessons.
Sure.
And like, so like, yeah, he was kind of this hot thing. I don't think in terms of like adult worship that he was ever brought up much. Maybe in some circles, but I think youth ministry, he was really
Interesting.
He was really big for a minute there.
That's funny. I definitely heard him mentioned in a couple sermons after.
Yeah, for sure.
At least one. Jess, what about you at your church? Did they ever bring him up?
Not so much at my church. I feel like I had talks with my family about it, and it was like me and my brothers were like, "Oh, it's so awesome" and stuff. And my family was all very like skeptical, like, "Okay, whatever. Yeah, what's his angle? What?
Yeah.
Like, is it really a real gospel album? Okay, whatever." Like, just very skeptical and kind of questioning his motives for dropping a gospel album.
Yeah, that was some of my family members too. That was the first time them listening to Kanye at all.
I think it's cool to see both him turning to God here and then Kim, the work she's doing with prison reform. I think it's cool that like that family
This is really dope.
is like this family that's like kind of known as being like the most secular, the most over the top, like famous for nothing family
Materialistic,
ever,
like
is doing like good work now. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
They're rebranding themselves for that presidential run.
like you were saying,
Probably,
God
yeah.
uses imperfect people for his will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect example.
I feel good. How do you guys feel? Do you
I
have
can go longer, but if you guys are done, we can be
Well,
done.
let's see where we're at.
I don't have any more thoughts.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't
coming up
either.
to 3 hours of rolling today. This has been mammoth. We've really done it.
It's an average Tuesday for Rogan.
I was gonna say.
Exactly.
We'll see how much it is edited down, but this has been just a monumental push. So thank you guys for sticking with all of it and being on the show.
Hey, it was fun. Thanks for having
This
us.
is super good. We'll have to
Before
have
we
you back.
leave, give them your. Where can they reach out to you guys? Where can they follow you? What can they do?
I'm really only on Twitter, so at Nathan Miske.
Nice.
NATHANMISKE. Complain about sports a lot.
There it is.
Jess,
I have an Instagram. Haven't posted on it once. I think Basil probably tagged it on the.
I tag you every day.
Yeah, I don't even know what my ad is on Instagram. So look on the Coach Pod.
I'm gonna
page.
find you right now.
I
Hold on.
think probably it's
Hold
just
on.
at
Hold
Jesse Lindahl or _ Lindahl.
No, it's not that. It's something else.
I mean, go follow Xavier Rhodes. He needs all the love he can get right now.
Yeah, everyone follow Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah, everybody.
Tweet nice things.
I'll
at
get
him.
your obsession with Xavier Rhodes. Okay.
It's just a.
He doesn't have anything
It's
post
a bit, Basil. It's a bit.
Exactly.
at Jesse _ Lindahl. That's his handle. No pictures or nothing. But,
Hey, he's not gonna
go
blow
follow
up
him.
your feed. Like you're not gonna be like, oh, another Jesse post.
And hey, when I do finally post that one day, it's gonna be great.
Big.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for
Yeah.
it. Guys, go follow at podcast The Cook and the Coach. Reach out to us there. DM us your questions. You can also email us at the Cook and the Coach pod at gmail.com. Ken, want to give him your socials really quick while I find his Twitter account?
Yeah, on Instagram at KPMartin2, KPMARTIN2. Follow me there.
You can also follow the Cook and the Coach on Twitter. Our handle is at the Cook and the C1. Again, that's at the Cook and the C1. Guys, you can follow me on Instagram at Beza BAEZA Tensaya TENSAIE. DM us your questions. Reach out to us. Talk to us. We're here to help you guys and build a community with you guys. So
Hell yeah.
thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for being on the podcast. We loved it.
It's fun. It was a blast.
All right.
All right, that's
Love
it.
you guys.
See you guys next
Good
time.
job.
Bye.
Bye.